So the first title I worked with was Metal Gear Solid. It was the first formal job I had. Before that, I was only a student. I was seeing things as a player, and that first Metal Gear Solid was the first title I worked as a creator rather than as a player. So I remember I was very excited and at the same time a bit nervous. What I did back then is too different of what I do these days. Back then we had very few people. Designers, I think we had like 5 or 6 designers overall, so I was trying to put the team together, check out the lighting, the balance in the art. So I kind of did the same thing back then. My first job even in Metal Gear, the first work I had was creating Metal Gear Rex. At that time it didn't have any name. I was just told by Mr. Kojima to design a Metal Gear. So I was working in pencil and paper where I used to work back then. This was my very first job I got assigned, and I had a very hard time putting it together. So I was told, well, then try to create a model rather than putting on pencil and paper. So I went home, and I was there creating for a while, trying to put it together. So the first things that other team members saw from me wasn't necessarily my drawn art, but the model I created, and I think they were rather satisfied. I myself was satisfied with what came out of that.
Was it your idea to add more, I think a lot of this came from the name as well, but to add more of the dinosaur elements to Metal Gear Rex?
I think, yeah, that would be me. I mean, before Metal Gear Solid, of course, there was Metal Gear for MSX. Those games had different Metal Gears that also had like dinosaur-like elements, several organic elements. I took several ideas from there, and well, after going back and forth, shooting several ideas, and going back and forth with Mr. Kojima, talking with him, well, we thought like, well, maybe making it look like a dinosaur. You know, back in those days, Jurassic Park was showing, and we thought, well, maybe making it look like a dinosaur, it will look stronger, and those kind of ideas came together, and I think that's what shaped Rex.
How big was the whole art team back there for Metal Gear Solid 1?
Yeah, we were really, I think 6. If you count also people that were working in motions, then probably around 10.
Do you miss those days of working with such a small team, or do you like managing a larger art team now?
Well, one thing is that back then, what we could do was rather limited. I think with current games, it would be too difficult to create things enough with 6 people. Also, well, right now I'm working with several team members that were the same back then, so I don't think it has changed that much, honestly.
I'm curious, just to get specific, the look of the boss from Metal Gear Solid 3, she had such a great, strong look, and I'm wondering, her in-game model, what was that based on? Where did that look come from?
I guess that would be a French actress called Charlotte Lamp. I usually don't think of actors, actresses in my creative process. I try not to base it on any actual characters, but when I was talking with Hideo, going back and forth on what kind of character the boss was, well, we suddenly had the idea, well, it should be somehow, Charlotte Lamp is a good image of that, so I didn't necessarily base it off on her, but Hideo and me, we both had the idea of, well, she's a good inspiration source. From there I started working, so yeah, I guess I did have her in mind while I was working on the boss.
So when you're just walking around in your daily life, are you taking notes of interesting faces or interesting looking machines or technology to then incorporate in your concept art and illustrations?
Well, not necessarily. I don't necessarily take notes while I'm moving in the city. That's mainly because when I move, I usually use a car or a bicycle, so it's quite difficult to take notes while I'm doing that. But one thing is that a while ago, I used to take the train to come to the office. So on my way here to the office and on my way back, I used to spend all the time in my sketchbook, drawing sketches and whatnot. Now these days I use my bicycle, so I don't have the time. I can't do that anymore. But I do have fond memories of doing that.
Do you still feel like you're growing as an artist? Do you have time to illustrate on your own, or is much of your time now just managing such a large team?
I need to be honest here, management is definitely not one of my strengths. I mean, I can't even manage my own self, so it's very difficult to manage. So honestly, these days I enjoy a lot the time I'm drawing on myself. Every time I feel I need to learn more new things, I need to keep improving. One thing that is different though is that A while ago, I used to create everything on myself, clean the character up, brush it up. Compared to right now that we're working as a team, the concept art team, we're working everyone hand in hand together. So I'm not sure if I should call that management, but I do. My perspective has changed from creating everything on myself to everyone creating something together.
I'm curious, what's been your favorite part of working on Metal Gear Solid 5 now? What have you enjoyed the most so far?
Well, I mean, we're still working on it, but for every game, it's kind of similar. My favorite phase is when you are putting all the ideas in, when you're brainstorming. It's kind of like the stage where you're thinking of concepts of the concepts, just drawing sketches, just throwing ideas in. After that, well, there's a phase where you have to put together the game, the characters, the story, and somehow find a balance within that, maybe retake some drawings. It requires a bit more thinking. So my favorite part, I guess, is just prior to that, where you're creating the concepts. The part where you're creating rather the concept of what will be the concepts, where you're throwing in whatever you like. That's a part that I really enjoy every time I'm creating a game.
Do you think the team gets really excited when they get to design a new character like Quiet or Code Talker compared to updating a character like seeing Ocelot 10 years older?
Well, honestly, both are very exciting because every time we're working on a new game, whether it's new characters or old characters, we are always creating them as new characters. So it's there's not that much of a difference there. But one thing is that when we're creating new characters, that's a bit more difficult because we have nothing to base on how to imagine the character, how the character should be. So it is a bit more difficult to work on new characters.
Can you talk at all about the design of Eli that we saw in that trailer?
Irai,
Eli.
no デザイン
どういうキャラクター
どういうふうにそれはまだ yeah, right now we can't disclose too much about that character yet.
I'm curious if you want to get specific about changing the look of Big Boss from Ground Zeroes to Phantom Pain.
Well, for these changes that Snake has from Ground Zeroes to Phantom Pain, a big part of it is that Hideo had very specific requests, very specific ideas of what he had in mind. So based on that, I try to get closer to what he imagined, what he ambitions. Also, well, every game of this series, of the Metal Gear series, has a very specific theme. Trying to create that idea, Snake very naturally changed. Trying to put together all these ideas, all these ambitions that everyone has, leads to a very natural changing of Snake.
So are you pulling inspiration from making Snake in the Phantom Pain look more like a demon? Like he has the rubble in his head that looks like a horn, and he has what I think is the doorknob's hand that can light the flame. Is that part of the inspiration? Is you want to give him a darker, more demonic look?
Well, yeah. I mean, this was a gradual change. Snake didn't look like that from the beginning, and was that the idea to make him look exactly like that from the beginning? Of course, there is always a general concept of how we want Snake to look, and this over the time gradually changed while trying to put it in the game. We learned, well, Snake will have a horn. What kind of horn? What size will it be? I made several sketches on this. Putting it together, it was a very gradual change. Also, it's not like my concept goes per se in the game, but what you see on screen is a 3D model. So also talking with the artists that create the 3D models, all the different technologies that are out there, all these elements came together and shaped Snake as he will look in these games.
Do you want to talk about just the team's approach to open world? Is the art team overwhelmed by the amount of content they have to make for an open world?
Well, all studios that create open world are kind of similar in this regard. We have a lot of things to create, a lot of assets. Always, so we partner with different places to be able to create all this. A big part of the designer job here in our studio is, other than creating these assets, also to control how everything is created. There is a point, especially in open world, where you can hit a wall where you have to create a lot of quantity things. So sometimes we need to partner with other places to be able to create all of this. But the one thing is that we always put a lot of care into the quality, the models. We always control this in-house. We're not sacrificing anything, and even if it's a massive amount of assets, we want everything to look beautiful, to look good into that environment, and that's something we really try to control as well as create.
So, are you able to go back and appreciate and still think that you did a great job with the art of older games like the first Metal Gear Solid or even like Metal Gear Solid 2 and 3? Or do you look back and you don't think that the in-game assets have aged very well?
For games, as you know, every time a new hardware is released, there's a huge evolution. So when I look back, there are definitely things that are very different and that are changed, and I get a chance to make a much more clear idea of what things had changed and what happened. So yeah, it's more accentuated in games. Sometimes I look at some of this and I was like, well, this was quite a good work back then. I look at other stuff and I'm definitely not satisfied. Some of them haven't aged well. So I think I get all kind of feelings when I look at, depending on what I'm looking at. When I look at this, given all these different reactions that me myself have with this, I always have different, like, you know, I'm not there yet. There's still a lot for me to learn, a lot of room for me for improvement. That's a strong feeling that I get every time I look back at my work.
But he still thinks that the PlayStation 1 version of the Cyborg Ninja looks cool.
Well, actually, for Cyborg Ninja, not too long ago, I had a chance to work on a figure of the Cyborg Ninja. Also for Metal Gear Rising, I created a model of the Cyborg Ninja. So to do all that, I looked for the old model that I created back then for PS1, and well, of course, now that I look at it, it was a completely different methodology that we were using back then. So looking at the proportions of the character, how it's balanced, I thought it was quite a bit too anime-ish, a little bit manga-ish. The character looked a little bit too thin for my perception these days. What I thought was, well, if I'm creating this nowadays, it would definitely there will be some differences. So I created the figure, the Rising model, a bit more updated, a bit more closer to what I think it's cool these days, what I think looks good nowadays.
So he wants to move away from the more anime and manga inspired motion and design, but is there still flavors of that in Phantom Pain even, do you think?
Well, at least for Metal Gear Solid 5, those elements shouldn't be there in a conscious level, because one thing that is absolute when we are creating this game is we want to create something, some designs that can be accepted worldwide, that can be rather easily assimilated by anyone, anywhere in the world. But that's an absolute that we have when creating this. So at least on a conscious level, these kind of elements shouldn't be there. But then again, there will be some Japanese elements there. Me myself being Japanese, and several of our team members being Japanese, there might be some reminiscences of some elements of this manga anime culture that we have within us. And also, that's not something that I want to completely remove, because at that point, if there are no elements, no Japanese elements, well, whoever creates this doesn't necessarily need to be us. So I always try to focus on creating some kind of design that can be accepted and assimilated by anyone anywhere in the world. But at the same time, there might be some elements that are proper to us, some Japanese elements might still be there.
After every Metal Gear Solid, Kojima-san says that he wants to retire and doesn't want to direct the next one. Are you in that same boat where you'd like to eventually get away, or are you happy working on Metal Gear into the future?
Well, I still don't have any feelings about retiring, but one thing is that yes, every time it's exhausting creating a game, but I always consider it as a blessing to be able to work. There are only so many series that go through several years, and having the opportunity to be working on this series that have been going for many years, it's something that also it makes me very happy, and I'm very satisfied with this. That's it. Of course, as I guess anyone would be, every now and then I get the idea, well, maybe I would like to work, it would be interesting to work on something else, why not try something else? But that's it. Metal Gear is something that I really want to take care of, want to embrace.